You have prayed this verse before. You may have prayed it this week, and somewhere underneath the familiarity, something never quite settled. Matthew chapter 7, verse 7. Ask, and it shall be given you. Seek, and ye shall find. Knock, and it shall be opened unto you. The tradition that received this verse as a simple promise, a guarantee that God answers when you ask, has carried real people through real grief. That reading is not wrong. The comfort is real, and the promise is in the text. But the Greek word behind that first command, Aiteo, carries something the English word ask cannot carry. And what it carries changes the posture of the entire verse before you have even reached the seeking or the knocking. 3 commands, 3 responses. Most people who have spent time here treat them as one idea, 3 different ways of entering the same prayer, a promise you can approach from any direction and receive the same result. The Greek text does not treat them the same way. The first question is about the shape of asking. The English word ask describes a single event. You ask and you wait. But Aiteo in the original is a continuous command. The instruction is not ask once, it is keep on asking. And what that continuous posture does to the person holding it over time is not about persistence as pressure. It is about something that happens inside the one who keeps asking. The second question is about the seeking. The word translated seek in verse 7 appears 8 verses earlier in the same address. Jesus used the exact same word, the exact same form, in a completely different command. And what that earlier command assigned as the object of seeking changes what you are actually looking for when you come to this verse. The third question is the most disruptive. 2 of the 3 responses in this verse are written in one form. One of them is written in a completely different form. The grammar distributes the work across the 3 commands in a way English has never shown you. And once you see which response is written differently and why the text assigns it to a different agent, the whole verse reorganizes around something you were never told. 3 questions, none of them resolved yet. What the continuous asking does to the asker, what the seeking was already pointed toward before you arrived at this verse. Which one of these 3 does not work the same as the other 2? Those 3 questions are the trail. The word translated ask in Matthew chapter 7 verse 7 is Aiteo, Strong's number G154. Thayer's Greek lexicon defines it as to ask, beg, call for, crave, desire, require. The full range covers petition, request, and demand. Nothing in that range is unusual. What English cannot carry is the form of the verb. Aiteo in verse 7 is a command that describes a continuous ongoing action. The instruction is not ask once and wait. It is keep on asking. The English reads it as a simple instruction, ask, and the promise follows. But the shape of what Jesus gave is not a single transaction. Keep on asking, that is what the Greek says. But the form of the command changes the quality of what you bring to it. When Aiteo becomes a transaction, it becomes fragile. You ask. Nothing arrives. You ask again. Still nothing. And after enough silence, the verse starts to feel like a door that opens for other people, but not for you. The problem is not the verse. The problem is the shape of the asking. Aiteo as a continuous command maps to sustained orientation rather than urgent petition. Not desperation repeated at increasing volume. Not a request filed and waiting for processing. An ongoing turned posture towards something not yet present. A direction held steady over time. Aiteo is not a louder version of asking. It is a different quality of inner engagement entirely. The person who holds Aiteo as a continuous posture is not pushing harder at a closed door. They are remaining available for something that is already in motion toward them. The difference between asking once and keep on asking is not about pressure applied to God. It is about what continuous asking does to the person who maintains it. Something changes in a person who holds the posture of asking over time. They do not harden into impatience. They stay open. They stay turned toward what they do not yet have. The asking begins to shape the inner life of the asker before any answer arrives. And then verse 8 does something most readers pass over entirely. Matthew chapter 7, verse 8. For every one that asketh receiveth, and he that seeketh findeth, and to him that knocketh it shall be opened. Verse 7 gives commands. Verse 8 shifts to a different form. Not the one who asked, not someone who prayed on Tuesday and is waiting for Friday. The one who asks. continuously, present and ongoing. The action has fused with the identity of the person doing it. They are not someone who prayed a verse and is waiting for a result. They have become someone defined by the posture of asking. The doing has become the being. This is not a minor grammatical point. It is the whole verse shifting from a description of behavior to a description of identity. The asker receives not because they asked on the right day in the right words, but because asking has become what they are. Aiteo maps to the inner state of continuous orientation toward what is not yet present. Not anxious, not passive, turned, held in a direction. That is the foundation. Aiteo gives you the posture, but aiteo is not the verb that breaks the pattern. Something happens at the center of verse 7 that opens a trail backward through the same chapter. And what that trail reveals changes what the seeking is actually for. Turn back 8 verses in the same teaching. Matthew chapter 6, verse 33. But seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. The word translated seek there is Zeteo, Strong's number G2212. Thayer's lexicon defines it as to seek in order to find, to seek a thing, to require, demand. The range covers active searching and deliberate pursuit of a named object. Now look at the word translated seek in Matthew chapter 7, verse 7. It is Zeteo, the identical word, the identical grammatical form. Appearing 8 verses apart within the same sustained address to the same audience on the same hillside. Matthew is a structured text. The repetition of an identical verb form within 8 verses is not stylistic accident. The second appearance of the word inherits the content of the first. When Jesus says seek in chapter 6, verse 33, he names the object. Seek the kingdom first. That is not a metaphor left open for the listener to fill in. It is a command with a named destination. The seeking has a target before the seeker takes a step. When the same verb returns in chapter 7, verse 7, it arrives carrying that destination with it. The seek in verse 7 already knows what it is looking for before the verse begins. You are not told to search generically, to look harder, to try more approaches, to want something with greater sincerity. The verb was given its object 8 verses earlier. The seek in your prayer has a defined direction. This changes the shape of what you are doing when you pray this verse. Most people approach Matthew 7:7 as a method for obtaining what they need. The 3 commands become 3 techniques for producing results. Ask harder, seek longer, knock louder. The energy flows outward toward an object you want delivered. But if the Zeteo in verse 7 carries its meaning from verse 33 of the previous chapter, then what you are seeking is the kingdom. And the kingdom, as the Sermon on the Mount has been building since chapter 5, maps to an inner state of alignment, of right orientation from the inside outward. Not a location, not a reward deferred until death. A quality of inner life that the teaching has been describing from the Beatitudes onward. You are not looking for a thing to be delivered. You are oriented toward a state to be inhabited. And that changes what seeking actually means in this verse. Most people who have prayed Matthew 7:7 have sought with their attention on the outside. They look for a door to open, a provision to arrive, an answer to come from somewhere above them. The seeking flows outward toward an object they want. But if Zeteo here carries its destination from the previous chapter, then seeking orients inward. The kingdom, as Jesus has been describing it since chapter 5, is not elsewhere. It is a quality of inner alignment. It is what the Beatitudes point toward. It is what the salt and the light refer to. It is what is produced when the inner life is rightly ordered. You seek not something to be received from outside, but something to be recognized within. The direction of the seeking changes entirely when you know the object. Aiteo gives you the posture. Zeteo gives you the direction. The seeking has a named target before you arrive at the prayer. But who does the finding? That is where this verse does something in the verb forms that no English translation has shown you. And once you see how the 3 responses are actually distributed across the 3 commands, the whole verse changes shape around you. Look at how the 3 responses are written in Matthew chapter 7, verse 7. Ask, and it shall be given. The word given is a future form where God is the agent. Something acts on you. The giving comes toward you. You do not produce it. Knock, and it shall be opened. The word opened is written the same way. God is the agent again. The opening comes toward you. 2 commands, both responses assigned to God, both passive. The tradition that holds this verse as a promise of God's generosity is right about 2/3 of it. The giving is grace. The opening is grace. They come toward the person who asks and knocks, but now look at what stands between them. Seek, and ye shall find. The word is heurisko, Strong's number G2147. Thayer's lexicon defines it as to come upon, hit upon, to meet with, after searching to find a thing sought. The range covers discovery through deliberate movement and the moment of encounter that follows sustained search in a defined direction. Now look at how the response to seeking is written compared to the 2 responses that flank it. Ask, and it shall be given. Knock, and it shall be opened. Both responses move toward you. Something gives, something opens. The grammar assigns both to the same agent, but the response to seeking is written in a completely different form. The grammar assigns it elsewhere. And that single difference is what the entire verse has been building toward. Why would Jesus distribute the work that way? Why would 2 responses come toward you and one require you to move? The answer is what makes this verse a method rather than a promise. Verse 8 confirms it. He that seeketh, findeth. The form is active. The finding belongs to the one who seeks. The one who maintains the posture of seeking, oriented in a defined direction with sustained, continuous movement, arrives at the discovery through their own agency. And then Jesus gives the proof, not a theological argument, a human one. Matthew chapter 7, verses 9 through 11. Which of you, if his son ask bread, will he give him a stone? Or if he ask a fish, will he give him a serpent? If ye then, being evil, know how to give good gifts unto your children, how much more shall your Father which is in heaven give good things to them that ask him? The evidence Jesus reaches for is not God's sovereignty or power. It is a father's instinct. A parent who already knows what the child needs and does not withhold it. The gifts match the need because the giver is already oriented toward the asker. The giving is natural. It is already in motion toward you. 2 of the 3 responses in verse 7 are already coming. The receiving is grace. The opening is grace. Both move toward the person who asks and knocks. But the finding reflects how discovery actually operates inside a person. You have to be the one who goes to where it is. The text assigned the discovery to you because that is the nature of what is being found. It is not an object to be delivered. It is a recognition to be made, and recognition requires someone present enough, moving enough, oriented enough to meet what is there. Here's the answer. The giving is passive. The opening is passive. Both come toward you, but heurisko is active. You find. God gives. You find. God opens. 2 passive responses flanking one active one. The distribution is deliberate, and it is in the text of the verse. You cannot be given a discovery. You can only make one. 3 commands, and now the whole verse is visible. Aiteo gives you the posture. Keep asking, not a single petition, and then silence. A continuous orientation toward what is not yet present. Over time, the asking becomes what you are rather than something you do. The action fuses with the identity of the person holding it. The asker receives, because asking is what they are. Zeteo gives you the direction. The seek in verse 7 carries its object from chapter 6, verse 33. Seek the kingdom first. The direction was named before you arrived at the prayer. The verb arrives in verse 7, already knowing what it is moving toward. You are not searching for an unspecified object. You are oriented toward an inner state the sermon has been describing since its first word. Heurisko gives you the work. God gives. God opens. You find. The verb assigns the discovery to the seeker because the nature of finding requires someone who moves toward what is being sought. 2 receptions flowing toward you. 1 discovery yours to make. This is not a list of 3 prayer techniques. It is a sequence with a logic built into the order. The posture has to be established before the direction can be held. The direction has to be held before the finding can happen. Each of the 3 depends on the one before it. You cannot sustain the direction without the posture. You cannot make the discovery without the direction. The 3 commands are ordered by dependency, not by preference. And the proof Jesus gives is not abstract. It is a father and a child, a parent who gives bread and not stone, fish and not a serpent. The giving is already oriented toward the person asking. The grace is already in motion. It does not need to be unlocked. But the finding, that inner recognition of what was always present, that moment when the kingdom the sermon has been pointing toward becomes real inside a person, that requires someone who moves toward it. Not because God withholds it, because discovery is an active event that belongs to the one who keeps seeking. But there was something in this verse waiting for you to pick up, and now you have the name of it. The field guide for this video, covering the full lexicon entries for Aiteo, Zeteo, and Heurisko, the verse references where each term appears in Matthew, and a practice built from each term is available exclusively to members at the Watchman tier, the third tier on the Join button below. Most people who have prayed Matthew chapter 7 verse 7 receive the passive version. Ask and wait. Seek and hope something arrives. Knock and stand at the door. 3 ways to stay still and receive. The 3 commands absorbed into one undivided posture of expectation. But the middle step was never passive. It was yours. It has always been yours. And if no one ever showed you that the verb was active, you may have spent real time waiting for a discovery the text assigned to you to make. That is not an accusation. It is what was lost when the 3 verb forms were flattened into a single undivided promise. You cannot unknow the distribution now. Aiteo, keep asking. The posture is continuous. Zeteo, seek the kingdom first. The direction was named before you began. Heurisko, you find. The agency is yours. When you come back to this verse, and you will feel the weight shift at the center of it. 2 things already moving toward you. 1 thing yours to move toward, not burden, structure. A method that reflects how inner discovery actually works. A short practice built from this verse. Before you ask for anything in the morning, name what you are seeking, not what you want to receive, what you are actively seeking. Let the direction settle before the asking begins. Then ask from that orientation. The sequence in verse 7 is not decorative. Posture first, direction next, then discovery. Let the order itself be the practice. When you next feel that your prayers are going unanswered, check the middle verb first. Are you seeking? Are you moving? Are you oriented in a direction? The giving and the opening are already in motion on the other side, but the finding requires you to be in motion too. The 2 passive responses are already turned toward you. The active one is waiting for you to turn toward it. The verse assigned the work that way deliberately. If you read scripture this way, there is a community of people in the description below who do the same. The channel is built for people who want access to what was always in the text. You have done the finding today.